Dave summarized the troubling issues surrounding K-12 Inc. and one of its board members, Craig Barrett. What many may not know, however, including many state legislators, is the scope of Mr. Barrett's influence on education policy levels at the national level as well as the state level, as well as how he and his wife use their extensive wealth to exert influence. Just a few facts about their wealth. Mr. and Mrs. Barrett, Barbara Barrett, who ran for governor in 1994, give very generously to political causes. They gave $230,000 to political campaigns and causes in 2012, including $54,000 to the Romney Victory Fund and $51,000 to the Republican National Committee. Not only is Mr. Barrett on the board of K-12, but he is also chairman of the board of Achieve, which is a group of corporate members who devised the Common Core Standards, a new curriculum which will be tied to a new accountability test. Now, Governor Brewer recently issued an edict that the Common Core had to be renamed in Arizona, and that's because a group of Tea Party activists believe it's an attempt by the UN and President Obama to nationalize our education system. Now, they are a little off base on that, but there are some legitimate questions about the motives of some people who really have been at the helm of Common Core, reformers like Craig Barrett. We have mentioned before that Mr. Barrett is also chairman of the board of Basis, a charter school chain started in Arizona that is now going national in DC and Texas, as well as upcoming private schools in New York and California. The Barretts, Craig and Barbara Barrett, are in the process of giving $300,000 of their private wealth to the Basis schools. But what I want to focus on today is Mr. Barrett's role as head of the governor's Arizona Ready Council. This is the governor's Education Policy Advisory Board that makes recommendations about education legislation to propose. Now here's what I find to be unbelievable. That Craig Barrett, with his myriad of different education interests in the profit-making realm, including Basis and K-12 Inc., is heading this council. It is a huge conflict of interest. I believe the council was established to give the patina of legitimacy to many of his education reform ideas. Its Education Finance Committee was stacked with school privatization advocates. That committee was the one that pushed legislation to give schools that perform better more money. A plan that would have benefited which schools? Well, schools like Basis, which open in wealthy neighborhoods, skim off the top students, reject students with special needs because Basis doesn't provide them with core services, and Basis as a result has top scores every year. Now, through this committee, another plan has surfaced, which would in essence blow up our current way of funding schools and create what amounts to a statewide voucher plan. It would do away with local bonds and overrides, do away with the State School Facilities Board that provides money to build neighborhood schools, and concentrate all of the money at the state level, basically undoing local control. It would require asking voters to revamp Prop 301, which is a 6/10 sales tax currently in place, and increase that to a full penny. It would also require raising local property taxes, probably not a popular idea. This concept has been a pet project of Mr. Barrett's. I know that because I spent 6 months negotiating with his agents, including former State Superintendent of Public Instruction Lisa Graham Keegan, who wanted to put a version of this plan on the ballot in 2012. Our parent group had put forward a different idea for 2012, which became Prop 204. Mr. Barrett's group refused to compromise, and eventually Mr. Barrett told them to leave the negotiating table. He then later campaigned against Proposition 204. This new funding scheme would not increase overall spending on education in the state of Arizona. We would still be one of the worst funded school systems in the country. But a greater share of funds would transfer to charter schools, which right now do not have access to bond and override funds. It would also hinder the ability of districts to build new schools by eliminating their bonding authority. Charters are able to float bonds on the market, as Basis has done, which school districts would not be able to do without bonding authority. So, this is a power grab and a money grab, Mr. Barrett evidently knows his fingerprints shouldn't be on this one, as they were last time when he was pushing for the 2012 initiative. That's why this is being championed in the legislature by Senator Chester Crandall. When I emailed Mr. Barrett asking him if this was indeed his plan, I received no response. The Arizona Ready Council's Finance Committee, where this idea was introduced, was recently disbanded suddenly, without the knowledge of the larger council's members. And I believe that's because they don't want to have a public discussion about this new concept. I already know what the arguments the school privatizers and profiteers will roll out, that this is equity for all because bonds and overrides are so unjust since some districts can pass them and others can't. Don't believe them when they tell you they are doing this because they care about poor children. They are doing this because they care about charter schools and profits. What they won't tell you is that when a charter operator opens a school with your tax dollars, if they decide to close that school, all of the property inside, the building, and the land the building is on becomes that charter operator's private property. That's something Lisa Graham Keegan doesn't think should be changed. In the negotiations, the 6-month negotiations in 2011, we went round and round about this. She repeatedly argued that the gains should be the charter school operator's personal gains because they're operating this like a business, and if they had used their profits wisely and therefore were able to buy the land and buildings and supplies, those should remain their personal property. That's an argument I find, frankly, to be unbelievable.
And Eve, that is an incredible segment, and very, very frightening. It would change the nature of funding of education in this state dramatically, and it would change it for the worse. There's no question about it. These are very powerful people, and they're working behind the scenes. I'm so grateful that you happen to have this knowledge and information and have a heads up on it, because I honestly don't know all this information and didn't know it till you started talking about it. So we have to pursue this more and have to get it out further.
Well, we learned a lot when we were working on Prop 204. We learned who the people with the real power are, and there are people like Mr. Barrett, who's worth millions of dollars and knows how to use his money to exert influence. And that's exactly what's happening here.